Hello everyone and welcome to ACE Update online interaction for designing and building future airports. As India grows, more and more cities turn into important hubs of business and economic activity. It will be essential to design newer airports across the nation. Unlike airports designed earlier, the newer airports are being designed away from the cities to ensure that they have ample space for future expansion. At the same time, it is essential to ensure that the design interventions in existing airports are being carried out to prepare them for the future addresses the long-term concerns of a growing and developing nation like India. The pandemic too has brought focus on newer challenges which future airports need to address by the way of its design as also the use of contactless technologies. Allied areas in airports like security, surveillance, mobility, and easy navigation is also something we have to dwell upon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin with the panel discussion now. And our distinguished panelists today include Mr. Robi Lal from ICT Private Limited, Shivani Gaur from Gensler, Mr. Azreel Amir Jafar from the Veritas Design Group, Mr. Evan Walker from Turner India, and Mr. Prasannamurthy Desai from the Bangalore International Airport. Mr. Robi Lal, I would like to begin with you, sir. The first question which I have is, when it comes to planning, like you have been involved in so many projects now, when it comes to planning of newer airports, what are some of the important parameters which you believe should never be overlooked?
As an architect who has been into operations of airports, and I can tell you the first thing is actually safety. Safety, convenience, and aesthetics. There are three areas I think which one should look at and looking forward. Aesthetics of airports, the technical issues at airports, and finally, the whole planning process itself. So the most important things that start with are the technical issues and the aesthetics.
Okay. And so like when it comes to like where we see like for the existing airports, which are in an expansion mode, what are some of the very finer aspects one needs to look at, because they're already in the middle of a city and there is some existing infrastructure around. So in such cases, what would your advice be?
You'll have to expand it as much as possible within the constraints, keeping safety considerations in mind. And the important thing to see is to make sure that you don't upset the passengers going to the terminals, which is also in use. That's the important thing, matching together the existing operations and then the new expansion. It applies not just to the terminals, but especially to the roadways and accessibility, as well as to aircraft operations.
Thank you, sir. I think that's an excellent observation. And Mr. Lal mentioned aesthetics. Now, I would like to, move on to Ms. Shivani Gaur. Ms. Shivani, like aesthetics, now the design of an airport, to what extent do you feel, should the local design be implemented in it to give it a sense of place, How can that play a very important role?
Yeah, that's, first I would just reiterate the same point that Mr. Robi Lal made, that it is about safety. It is about giving the convenience to the passenger. And it's also about making journeys that are memorable. Now, at the same time, journeys they are so rooted into the local context. So now if an airport has to serve a journey, it has to be rooted into the culture of the people who are traveling through it. So it just becomes imperative to make it a part of the local context, the social context which surrounds it, and especially to serve the people suitably of that region. It is important that not just the aesthetics, but even the cultural understanding of people is really important in putting through the terminal planning process.
In that case, Ms. Shivani, one question which I have, like most of the cities are cosmopolitan in nature. So it's a tectonic mix of people from different cultures. So, like what sort of a challenge does it present to you as a designer, as an architect, to, to design, to kind of define the end design when you want to connect it to the culture?
Yes, I know we have a tendency to relate culture with ethnicity. But cosmopolitan cities also have their own unique culture by themselves. We all, like, just for example, Delhi differs a lot in the way Mumbai operates, in the way Kolkata operates or Chennai operates. So even if they are cosmopolitan, they have integrity, an identity of its own. Every city has it. Every city has its own challenges and constraints that it has to meet and serve the people best with. Now, airports being nodal points of development of a city, also nodal points of future growth for a city. So it becomes important for these, then, the terminals to become suitable for serving the unique needs of that city. So again, culture is nothing but just what are the aspirations, and also what are the cultural backgrounds that people come from. All together, it's a mix of how people behave and what people believe. So together, if we have a better understanding of what really the needs of the people are, and we serve them well with our terminals, I think that is what every terminal must aspire to be.
People and a specific design for the interiors and exterior which will satisfy the cosmopolitan population. Wonderful. And at this point, I would want to bring Mr. Walker in, and he has been integrating a lot of greenery in the existing Bangalore airport. So, Mr. Walker, how important is it now, especially in the backdrop of the pandemic, when people are possibly heeding to nature even more? What would you say? And how easy or difficult is it to incorporate this factor in the existing airports?
I think, and you bring up a great point in terms of in the broader context of where do we stand today, engulfed in this pandemic, where, frankly speaking, in a densely populated area like much of India is, that means a lot of people are relegated to experiencing life inside an apartment building, right? So they're away from nature, and there's extensive number of studies. I think even just from a personal perspective, we all recognize that power that nature has in terms of the ability to calm our sense of spirits, to connect with something bigger than ourselves. So, having this ability to bring these key elements into an airport terminal, and a lot of it depends in terms of, what tiered city you're serving, what stage of development the city and the airport itself is in. In larger cities like Bangalore, where we're fortunate to have a larger swath of passenger traffic, the BL team really understands, I'll say, part of the civic and social responsibility to create an environment that is not only aesthetically appealing, but also has a calming and tranquil effect in this overall airport experience. And so, the part of it, and we'll talk a bit about this, is then also understanding what is the necessary infrastructure to support that, and do so in an ecological way, which is one of the things I think we've been very successful about, and will continue to be on the new terminal.
That's nice to know, Mr. Evan. And I think aiding you in this process is Mr. Desai. And I'll move on to Mr. Prasannamurthy Desai. So, like, you have been a landscape designer and you have worked with different projects when it comes to landscape designing. So, like, you were just speaking a few minutes ago with Shivani, to what extent do you feel a well-designed landscape, gives the airport a sense of place and creates and turns it something worth remembering? People will remember it, that, when they look back and look at their travelogues.
See, for us, majorly for all Indians, airports are still in aspirational spaces. These are built in such a way that, we just are emulating ourselves in terms of making all these airports beautiful, green, clean, and customer friendly. We are quite influenced by the developments, what's happening in Singapore. Major airports are all, whether it's Europe or whether it's US or whether it's India, all airports would like to leave a lasting memory of that journey. Once you travel to Singapore, you would always love to go back and look at that integration of nature, which that journey will definitely revitalize you, and it will be very relaxing travel. It is not hush bush. It's all about looking at this greenery will make you calm. These journeys will become for a lifetime. So the idea is to integrate the nature with the traveler, which will have a long-lasting memory of his travel. It invites him to come to the airport again and again. Bangalore was always a benchmark in India in terms of greenery, in terms of landscape greenery. We would like to surpass that benchmark. We would like to look at how we can make it more interactive, more interesting, more understanding. Right now, this pandemic has taught us to be in almost like you are in a jail kind of a situation. You are just kept away from the greenery. By adding the greenery into this infrastructure, it will soothe you, it will relax you, it will make you this journey will be more interesting.
The Bangalore airport, especially, Mr. Desai, where you're working in, I think the airport design, especially outside, it's really, really beautiful. And I think
just to add more, right now the Terminal 2 development is literally like a terminal in the garden. It is a 4-vision. Once we look at the vision, what we are having currently, the major vision is making this terminal is into the garden. The whole experience is a garden experience, not a travel experience.
Yeah.
Whether you look at the external skin or internal ceiling, or walk through the entire terminal experience, will be walking into the garden.
The way it is planned, I've been to Bangalore myself. I think I really love it, the way they have planned the airport, and it's quite far from the city, and it is not kind of surrounded by settlements like it is, especially the Bombay domestic airport. So I hope the government keeps that in mind when they design the new Bombay International Airport.
No, basically, if you look at Mumbai, new Mumbai airport, currently that's also far away from the city center. It's in the Navi Mumbai area. Yeah. So there also the plan is to leave a long-lasting memory for a passenger. He's anguish what he comes through the city. Reaching the airport from a city will always be a 2 to 3 hour journey if you are stuck in a larger traffic. The idea is how does we calm them down? How does we make this experience a beautiful memory for them to carry?
Correct. Creating beautiful.
Yeah, I think Ms. Shivani have something to add to it.
Prasad was talking about Bangalore International Airport and the garden journey, and we are right now currently designing some lounges, really beautiful lounges within the concept of the garden city. So it's a very inspiring context to further develop and do something where a guest can further experience the garden essence of the city all the way into the interior. So I just wanted to mention that the introduction of the green is no more limited to just an exterior space. It's just getting so much deeper into our interiors, and it's helping in actually releasing the stress, because the stress levels have risen a lot more. The attention towards hygiene and safety and security has become even more. So it's just so important now to use the nature's elements to actually bring down the stress and anxiety.
Mental as well as emotional well-being being the foremost concern now. Henceforth, wherever we design any space, I think emotional well-being and physical well-being would be the first priority.
I think, yeah, that's quite right. Emotional well-being and physical well-being is definitely something that needs to be taken care of. Now, one thing which is very important when we are considering newer airports and existing airports is energy efficiency. And we have with us Mr. Azreel Amir Jafar. And sir, you also have been involved in designing airports. So what's your take when it comes to energy efficiency? Definitely sustainability and the green quotient do matter, but then there is the efficiency with regards to energy. How is that going to be achieved, especially in newer airports and the existing ones?
Right. Thank you, Vikas. Right. Basically, yes. I think another important element is sustainability, and you are talking about how to lower the energy consumption of the airport. First of all, airport is huge building. A lot of double volume, triple volume spaces, and that is kind of like, if you air condition the space, it's kind of like huge power consumer just to cool the space. Okay, basically, the most important thing is you need to tackle, as far as the airport is concerned, look at the component that use a lot of energy, which is the air conditioning, HVAC component of the airport. And perhaps, from there, we can start to evaluate the space and the experience within the airport itself. Another component, perhaps the skin, the high performance glass, or high performance enclosure of the building itself. The roof is another important element that we have to consider. Let's say, if you ask me how, if we were to refurbish the existing airport, I will go for the, for upgrading the HVAC system and make it less centralized. So you have, it will be more flexible and you have more control over it. And as well as start looking into other things like natural lighting, and before you go into the building envelope. So those are the three elements: the HVAC, the natural lighting, and the building envelopes, basically.
Mr. Lal, sir, may I request you to give a closing statement for this session?
Well, it's a bit unexpected, I must confess, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's so many different perspectives that have come through, both from energy issues, from inadequate, I must confess, new technologies which are being introduced, and of course, the whole issue of the garden terminal and the garden concept that Evan and Desai have pointed out is really, really most interesting. Since I fortunately go there and visit it every few months, I'm going to do that next time and meet them as well. But it really is an eye-opening experience. But one of the things I'd like to mention is that while we do this, and we've discussed mostly large airports and big airports, 20 million, 30 million more, what is going to come in the future are lots and lots and lots of small airports. I think Shivani mentioned it, and there might be a more spread. It's going to require more planning on a national level, and it's going to take tremendous detailed planning to get that cultural concept, energy efficiency, and technology into small airports. That's what's really going to be the demand for the immediate future.
Thank all the panelists for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic, airport and airports design, designing and building future airports. Delegates, we hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Robbie Lal, thank you so much. Mr. Jafar, thank you so much for being a part. Mr. Walker, thank you. Mr. Prasanna Desai, thank you. And Ms. Shivani Gaur, thank you so much. I would like to thank my editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this wonderful initiative. We would like our delegates and viewers to stay connected to us on our social media platforms. ACE Update is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Additionally, you can also download our app from the Google Play application and App Store. So with this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for such many and many more sessions to come ahead. Thank you and have a very good bye.